Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are taking on a subject that, well, frankly, it scares off a lot of gardeners. Even people who are great with everything else in their landscape.
Mm.
We're talking about roses.
Oh, yeah. There's this perception, isn't there, that rose growing is some kind of complicated, high-stakes ritual.
Exactly. Something reserved for experts or, maybe English grandmothers.
Yeah.
We're here to prove that's just not true. But first, let's just frame how important this plant actually is. Roses are the signature flower of the massive Rosaceae family. So that means when you're eating an apple, a cherry, a plum,
Or strawberry.
or a strawberry, you are engaging directly with a rose of botanical relatives.
And the history is, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. The wild species are estimated to be 35 million years old, but we've been actively cultivating them in China for about 5,000 years.
Wow.
They're just so deeply woven into human history, from the War of the Roses in the 15th century.
Right, symbolizing the warring houses.
All the way to the 17th century, where dried roses and rosewater were actually used as legal tender, as currency in parts of Europe.
That historical weight, plus just the sheer volume of choices today. I mean, we're talking over 30,000 cultivars globally. That's what leads to that feeling of being overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. And the hobbyist lingo doesn't help. Floribunda, hybrid musk, grandiflora.
You sound like secret passwords.
They really do. So our mission today is pretty simple. We're going to demystify all of that. We'll give you a kind of cheat sheet to choose the right type of rose and simplify the rules for growing them successfully.
We want to turn that anxiety of rose care into the joy of a successful, fragrant harvest. Okay, let's unpack this. We're going to decode the groups, but not based on technical breeding. We'll focus on two things you actually care about: how big they get and what kind of maintenance they need.
Okay, but before we even get into the physical plant, there's a huge decision you need to make when you buy it, and it dramatically impacts future maintenance. It's grafted versus own root.
Grafted. Oh, so most roses you find in, like, the big box stores are grafted, right?
Almost all of them. And what that means is a desirable variety is physically attached to a hardier rootstock. This creates a vulnerable knuckle, they call it the graft union.
Wait. So you're saying the rose I bought is basically two different plants stuck together?
Precisely. And that graft union is vulnerable to cold. It needs protection. And if a shoot comes up from below that union, it's not your rose, it's the rootstock.
That's the sucker people talk about.
That's the sucker. It's usually thorny and wild, and you have to aggressively cut it out.
So what's the alternative then?
The alternative is an own root rose. The entire plant is genetically the same. So if a cane dies back in the winter or a shoot comes up from the soil, it's guaranteed to be the rose you actually wanted.
Huh.
Grafted roses might give you a bigger bloom faster, but own root roses are generally hardier and more reliable in the long run. Honestly, this distinction is the #1 strategic decision you make before you even start digging.
That completely reframes the challenge. Okay, knowing that, let's get into classifications. Let's start small, the container heroes.
Right. These would be your miniatures or smaller, compact floribundas, perfect for patios and decks. They're cluster flowering, they repeat bloom all season.
And what's the key thing to know here?
The crucial point is that miniature refers to the size of the flower, not always the size of the whole plant.
Oh, that's a classic mistake to make.
A huge one. You have to read the label. For example, there's a variety, Warm Welcome. It has tiny flowers, but give it support. And it will aggressively climb 8 or 10 feet up a wall. So don't assume a small flower means a small bush.
Okay, good to know. Moving up to the medium roses then. 3 to 5 feet,
Yeah.
right? This is where most of the household names live, right? And where we get that show pony versus workhorse idea.
Exactly. The show pony is the hybrid tea. This is your classic high-centered florist rose. It's characterized by a single large, stunning bloom on a long, strong stem. Think black pearl or moonstone.
Beautiful, but high maintenance.
Very high maintenance. They're genetically programmed for that one spectacular flower, so they need more regular feeding, more intensive pruning, and more disease management.
And the workhorse.
That would be the floribunda. They're bushier, shorter, and they carry their blooms in these continuous, generous clusters. They're often bred for hardiness, so they're generally much more disease-resistant than hybrid teas. Great for beginners.
So what's a grandiflora? It sounds like it's trying to be both.
It is. It's an elegant bridge between the two. It tries to give you the large bloom size of a hybrid tea, but holds them in clusters like a floribunda. Think Queen Elizabeth. It's a tall, vigorous plant that's trying to capture the best of both worlds.
And if you want the ultimate workhorse,
Then you go for a shrub or landscape rose. Lines like Knockout or Oh So Easy. If your goal is truly low maintenance, continuous color, and extreme disease resistance, that's your starting point. It's about the mass effect of color, not the formal elegance of one bloom.
Okay, what about vertical drama? Climbers and ramblers. This is another area where people get confused.
So much confusion.
So, key learning right off the bat. Neither of these types actually climb like a vine, do they?
Not at all. They produce these long canes, some stiff, some flexible, and you, the gardener, have to attach them. You're responsible for tying and training those canes onto arches, pergolas, or walls. They can't do it themselves.
So what's the real difference then?
It's their growth habit and their bloom cycle. Climbers have stiffer canes and they usually repeat flower all season. The blooms are larger too, like the popular 4th of July climber.
And ramblers.
Ramblers are incredibly vigorous. Long, whippy, flexible canes. They typically produce one massive, unbelievable explosion of small flowers, but only once in early summer.
So you get one big show.
One huge show. It gives a wilder, more romantic look. Think Leontine Gervais.
And we can't forget the old garden roses, the hysterical ones.
The ones bred before 1867, like the damasks or gallicas. They're known for being just profoundly fragrant.
Incredibly tough and disease-resistant, too. But the trade-off is that many only flower once.
Exactly. You trade continuous color for heritage and that incredible scent.
That's a perfect segue, because fragrance is such a huge differentiator, and it's so much more complex than people think.
Oh, absolutely. The sensory experience is far beyond just a basic rose scent. We're talking notes of fruit, licorice, clove, even myrrh.
And here's a surprising fact I came across. Often, the varieties bred for the most intense, complex fragrances are also inherently more susceptible to fungal disease.
It's true. You're often forced to choose between that overwhelming scent and bulletproof hardiness.
So if you want that classic, iconic perfume bottle scent, what are you looking for?
You're looking for the damask fragrance. Varieties like Kazanlik, which is used commercially for perfume, or the modern dark red Papa Myland. They capture that essence perfectly. A really great blend, though, is Rose de Recht. It's a strong pink that combines damask and gallica notes.
But the outliers are fascinating. If you want something, say, savory or spicy.
You look for the clove profile. The deep purple hybrid tea ebb tide has this really complex, unusual fragrance. Many of the tough rugosa roses also have that spicy clove aroma.
And then there's myrrh. I hear that one is really distinctive.
It's very distinctive. It's an almost medicinal anise or licorice note. It's largely associated with the David Austin breeding line. Their rose-sceptered isle is a prime example of this unique and, well, sometimes polarizing profile.
For the sweet tooth, though.
For sweet, fruity, or citrus notes, Heirloom is a mauve blend known for intense sweetness. Fragrant Cloud has a bright, citrusy scent.
And I read the Climber Aloha has a distinct apple fragrance.
It does. And all this, the aesthetics, the long flowering seasons, the diverse scents, it's a genuine well-being benefit. Studies show that engaging with nature helps lower stress.
That sensory benefit is the reward. But to get it, we have to talk about the price tag.
Yeah.
The care. So let's tackle the biggest mental roadblock for new growers. Pruning. We need to clarify which rules are essential and which are just myths.
Right. Let's start with the timing anxiety. Rule number 1, prune when the forsythia blooms.
So that yellow shrub is the signal.
It just signals the start of the pruning window, usually mid to late March. But the structural pruning season is much longer. And crucially, if you have a once blooming rose, like an old garden rose or a rambler, you must wait.
Wait until after they bloom, right?
Yes, until after they finish their first bloom. If you prune before, you sacrifice every single flower bud for the entire season.
Okay, rule number 2, the beginner's mantra. Remove the 4 Ds.
The best guaranteed path to a bitter plant. Dead, diseased, damaged, and crossing stems. Healthy wood is vibrant green, red, or orange. If it's gray, black, dark brown, or peeling, cut it out.
And crossing branches.
Get rid of them. They rub holes in each other, which creates entry points for disease.
Okay, rule 3, prune to an outward-facing bud. This is to encourage that open vase shape.
It is, and it encourages you to think strategically. But here's the reality check. It's a guideline, not a law.
The rose might just do what it wants anyway.
It might. It has multiple dormant buds. The main value of this rule is it trains you, the gardener, to think about air circulation. Don't obsess over finding the perfect bud.
What about rule 4? Prune low, down to 18 or 24 inches. That sounds really harsh.
It is excessively harsh for most roses. Climbers, large shrubs, old garden roses, you should only prune those lightly.
So who is that for?
That applies almost exclusively to hybrid teas or floribundas, and only if your goal is to force the plant's energy into one massive, show-quality flush of blooms early on. You're sacrificing volume for size.
Okay, rule 5 is a big one. Use clean, sharp tools. This is non-negotiable.
Absolutely non-negotiable. Bypass pruners for anything thinner than your index finger, a saw for anything bigger.
But the really key part is disinfecting, isn't it?
It's a game changer. Wiping the blades with 70% isopropyl alcohol between cuts is vital to prevent spreading diseases, especially viruses which travel easily in the sap.
All right, now for the myths. Rule number 6, prune cuts on an angle.
Total nonsense.
Really, the idea was it would deflect water.
Horticulturally, that doesn't make any sense. Water will wet the area regardless of the angle. Just make straight cuts.
And what about sealing the cuts with glue or nail polish?
Another old wives' tale. It's unnecessary and can actually trap moisture, which encourages fungus.
So that brings us to the real guiding principle. Rule 7, prune for a pleasing shape, size, and most importantly, openness.
That's the whole goal. Opening up the center of the plant is your #1 defense against fungal problems like black spot and powdery mildew.
Right. Black spot is what drives most people crazy.
It is. But let's be clear. Black spot will not usually kill a mature plant. It will defoliate it and weaken it, though. Your best defense is just good culture. Full sun at least 6 hours, good air circulation, and deep watering at the base, never overhead.
And you have to feed them well.
A robust feeding program is critical. A slow-release fertilizer in early spring, a second dose in summer when you deadhead. You can supplement that with a liquid feed, like tomato fertilizer. For pests like aphids or Japanese beetles, a strong jet of water or insecticidal soap works well.
And one final planting tip you mentioned, replant sickness.
Yes. This is so often overlooked. If you remove an old rose, do not plant a new one in the exact same spot without replacing the soil.
Why is that?
The old plant has completely depleted specific trace elements that roses need. The new one will just struggle and fail. You have to replace the old soil entirely.
Okay, so with care and classifications covered, let's talk design. How do we match the right rose to the right garden structure?
It's all about matching the scale. If you're using an obelisk, that's usually a 5 to 8 foot structure, so you need a smaller shrub rose or maybe a patio climber.
What about arches and pergolas? You said ramblers are often preferred for arches, even though climbers repeat bloom. Why?
It's all about the growth habit. The long, flexible canes of a rambler let you bend and weave them easily over the curve. You get that beautiful, massive, dreamy look where the flowers cascade down. Climbers have stiffer canes, they just want to grow straight up.
And for a long pergola?
Symmetry matters. Use the same variety on the first 2 poles to frame the entrance visually. And remember to leave some gaps in the roof structure. The plants on the ground need sun, too.
For walls and fences, you'd want a climber.
Climbers are usually better for house walls, yeah. You train them horizontally on support wires. That encourages more flowers. And a common mistake. Never assume a single rose will cover a standard arch or doorway. You almost always need 2, one on each side to get that full tunnel effect.
We should also probably move away from those old-fashioned rose-only beds.
Absolutely. Integrating roses into mixed borders is better for air circulation, and it extends the seasonal interest. You can have color from April through November.
Mix them with things like ornamental grasses, irises.
Perennial geraniums. It gives you that softer cottage-style look.
And a final but not the thorns.
Right. Thorn-free varieties are an option, but they're very limited. A better solution is just strategic placement. Plant the thorny rose a little further back and put a dense, thornless perennial like lavender or catmint closer to the bench. You get the scent and the view without the scratches.
This deep dive has definitely broken down that barrier of intimidation for me. Rose gardening feels completely manageable once you focus on those core decisions. Picking the right category, understanding the scents, and following the essential care rules.
And leaving the debunked myths behind.
Exactly.
It's less about being some kind of hyper-specialized expert and more about making informed, strategic choices about your plant's genetics from the start. You have to ask yourself, do you want that high-maintenance show, pony hybrid tea, or do you want the hardy, genetically stable, own root floribunda? That choice dictates everything else.
Use this new knowledge. Pick a category. Whether you prioritize the perfume of a damask, the low maintenance of a knockout, or the drama of a rambler. Go select your first rose variety. You now have the tools to make sure that your first experience with the Queen of Flowers is a success.